Time Spiral Remastered previews have started. My name is Will, and Time Spiral block is my favorite in all of Magic, so I want to share some trivia that I've researched about the cards. I want to talk about the cards in the entire block, but Time Spiral alone has 300 cards, not even counting the time-shifted cards, so I'm just going to start there. I started playing Magic a couple years before Time Spiral was released, and my collection at the time was mostly my dad's old 4th edition cards, so I was a prime target for the set's callbacks and references. This was a set that got me going to FNM, and Standard at the time was really fun, and talking about the cards is really nostalgic for me. I hope you enjoy. Before Time Spiral, there was one Kithkin in the history of Magic, Amro Kithkin, who shares an artist credit with our first card, Amro Scout. Amro Scout can recruit other rebels from your deck, like many of the rebels printed in 1999's Mercadian Masks and 2000's Nemesis. Other rebels and recruiters appear in Time Spiral block, but since then the creature type has been retired, only appearing on Unsanctioned's Alexander Clamilton. It wasn't even used in Aether Revolt, and that set heavily featured a rebel faction called the Renegades. Amrou Seekers is another Kithkin rebel and also illustrated by Quentin Hoover. Amrou Seekers shares the ability granted by the aura Seekers from 1994's Legends. Seeker was a white variation of Fear from 1993's Alpha, both illustrated by Mark Poole. Fear was a staple of core sets through 2007's 10th edition, and the ability granted by Fear was eventually keyworded as Fear in Onslaught in 2002. Fear was reprinted granting the newly named keyword in the following year's core set, 8th edition. Seeker's ability would never be keyworded, but Intimidate, first printed in 2009's Zendikar, is nearly identical to it and Fear. Fear and Intimidate have both been dropped in new sets, replaced by Menace. Despite both being labeled as rebels, the two new Kithkin of Amrou don't appear to be affiliated with any of the Rothi tribes, which previously filled the rosters of the rebel groups of Dominaria. According to the Magic History Story podcast, the Kithkin's destroyed homeland of Amrou Haven was located around here, northwest of Arborea. Kithkin would appear again and be a major tribe in the next block, 2007's Lorwyn. Angel's Grace has a lot going on. First, let's focus on Split Second. Split Second was originally designed as a candidate for the red-blue Izzet mechanic for 2006's Guild Pact, before the design team settled on Replicate. It would later be added as a mechanic to 2006's Cold Snap, but during development on Time Spiral, it moved sets to replace the cut mechanic. Named Superfast during playtest, Split Second calls back to Interrupts, which was a card type that existed before the rules changes that came with 6th edition in 1999. Interrupts couldn't be responded to with instants or activated abilities, just by other interrupts. Split Second pauses the game while it's on the stack in a similar way. Like your options to respond, interrupts no longer exist. With 6th edition, all past interrupts and mentions of interrupts were changed to instants. This changed how certain cards were played, for better or for worse. For instance, Power Sink got a lot worse because opponents could now spend their mana on instants and abilities before all their lands were tapped, and Avoid Fate got a lot better, as it could now counter instants that targeted their permanents. Back to Angel's Grace. It is an instant that grants the abilities of Worship from 1996's Urza Saga and Platinum Angel from 2003's Mirrodin. The artwork, illustrated by Mark Zug, features a figure mimicking Sarah's pose from Worship, also illustrated by Mark Zug. The titular angel probably isn't Platinum Angel though, but one of Dominaria's own Sarah Angels, who was illustrated in 2001's 7th edition by Mark Zug. Benalish Cavalry reintroduces flanking, a returning mechanic that originated from 1996's Mirage and its follow-up sets, Visions and Weatherlight. Flanking appears almost exclusively on knights riding horseback, and Time Spiral is no exception. 6 years before Time Spiral, Italian artist Parente illustrated a different knight from Benalia with a suspiciously similar pose, Benalish Lancer, from Invasion. For reference, Benalia is located here, on the continent of Arona, and Benalish Knights would be featured again heavily in the 2018 set Dominaria. Castle Raptors are not dinosaurs, but Aven from Otaria, the continent featured as the setting of 2001's Odyssey block and 2002's Onslaught block. While most of the Aven from those blocks look like humanoid eagles, Castle Raptor's appearance is more falcon-like, similar to Celestial Gatekeeper from Legions, both illustrated by Christopher Muller. Castle Raptor's +0/+2 ability and name are shared with Castle, which first appeared in Alpha and was included in every core set through 7th edition. One last note for Castle. When it was reprinted in 6th edition, it lost the text saying attacking creatures lost the bonus, meaning your creatures with Vigilance could not benefit from its ability while attacking. Cavalry Master is not the first flanking lord in Magic. That would be the legendary Telem Tor from Mirage, whose name is an intentional anagram of Mr. Toilet. Mr. Toilet was the nickname of Scott Siegel, a designer involved in Mirage and Visions. Knight of Valor from Visions has an activated ability that does a very good impression of having 2 instances of flanking. Another likely source of design influence for Cavalry Master is Sensei Goldentail from 2004's Champions of Kamigawa. The legendary creature's card ruling even features a similar line about multiple instances of the ability triggering separately. And, to tie it back around to Knights again, Bushido was a candidate for a mechanic tied to the Knights of 2019's Throne of Eldraine. It would have been renamed Chivalry, but was ultimately dropped. Celestial Crusader has Flash, a mechanic that existed long before Time Spiral, first appearing on King Cheetah from Visions, but not receiving keyword status until this set. It takes its name from Flash, which can be used to play any creature at instant speed, but it's usually involved in unrelated infinite combos. The Crusader shares its ability and name with the controversial 2-mana enchantment Crusade. Crusade was first printed in Alpha and was reprinted in core sets up through 6th edition. In 2020, Crusade was banned from sanctioned tournament play, and images of it were removed from Wizards of the Coast card database Gatherer, replaced with the following. We have removed this card image from our database because it has racist or culturally offensive art, text, or a combination thereof. Racism and cultural insensitivity are unacceptable and have no place in our games nor anywhere. Children of Corliss' name is a reference to the Martyrs of Corliss from 1994's Antiquities. If you find a high-quality image of the artwork, the Children of Corliss have red tattoos on their face. Tears of blood, like the artwork from Blood of the Martyr from The Dark from 1994. Corliss was a kingdom located on the continent of Terra right around here, but it was destroyed. Chronosavant gets its name from 2 creatures from Vision, Necrosavant and Chronotog. Its artwork has obvious similarities to Necrosavant. Chrono and Necrosavant are both 6-mana 5/5 giants that can return themselves from your graveyard to play during your upkeep for a cost. Necrosavant requires you to sacrifice a creature. Chronosavant requires you to skip your next turn. Chronotog is an Atog that can get +3/+3 if you feed it your next turn. Put them together and you get one of the grindiest win conditions a Martyr of Sands could wish for. Chronosavant was the win condition for a deck that had a couple different names. My favorite name for it was Snow White, that used Martyr of Sands and Proclamation of Rebirth to gain just a ton of life, and then it didn't matter if you were skipping your turns, because you could just mill your opponent out, or kill them with the giant. Cloudchaser Kestrel is the 3rd member of the Cloudchasers, a trio of birds that really hate enchantments. Cloudchaser Eagle debuted in 1997's Tempest, but returned in 7th edition. I think Aven Cloudchaser is probably better known, as it was first printed in Odyssey, but saw reprints in 8th, 9th, and 10th editions. Cloudchaser Kestrel follows in their claw steps by being a white 2/2 bird that destroys an enchantment when it enters the battlefield. But it gets a mana discount and a new trick. It can Pure Lace your permanents. Somehow, there's already been a 2/2 flying Pure Lacer before, or a Griffin from 2001's Planeshift. Devoant Healer appears to be the daughter of Devoant Archer and a Samite Healer, sharing a converted mana cost and stats with her mother. Samite Healer was a staple of core sets from its origin in Alpha all the way through 10th edition. Devoant Archer was introduced to Magic in Legends along with Alabaster Potion, which has flavor text hinting at the healing capabilities of the Order of Devoant. The Order of the Devoant was located in or near the town of Hamath, placing it on the small continent of Corondor. Detainment Spell has a couple of loose references. It shares the activation ability Dampening of Arrest, which was first printed in Mercadian Masks. Detainment Spell's flavor text and activated ability also seem to directly tie to Shackles from Exodus, which was first available in 1998. It is worth noting that prior to Time Spiral, Detainment Spell's activated ability was only featured on 2 other auras, Keldorian Pride from Alliances in 1996 and Stasis Cell from Ravnica in 2005. Divine Congregation is seemingly based on Congregate from Urza Saga, but with so many small changes for the worse. It isn't an instant, and it doesn't count every player's creatures, just target player, which makes it a lot worse in multiplayer kitchen table Magic like I used to play. The only thing Divine Congregation has going for it is Suspend. Suspend is a new mechanic in Time Spiral that lets you cast the spell for a discounted cost, but you have to wait a couple turns for it to take effect. Suspend was designed as a mechanic that could have appeared on Legendary Sorceries for 2005's Saviors of Kamigawa. The Suspend mechanic would be pulled from the set at the request of Mark Rosewater, Magic's lead designer, as he thought it would be worth using for an entire year's worth of sets instead of just getting featured in the third settable block. It would be replaced in Saviors by Epic, but in the end, Epic cards didn't see print with the Legendary Sorcery type line. Legendary Sorceries would receive a new design and finally made an appearance in Dominaria almost 15 years later. The two time mechanics, Suspend, borrowed from Saviors, and Split Second, borrowed from Cold Snap, along with the idea of forming a block based on time, split into past, present, and future, would form the basis of the Time Spiral block. Duskrider Peregrine is another card featuring Suspend. This one, though, is based on Duskrider Falcon from 1997's Weatherlight. Duskrider Falcon has a sister card from the previous set, Vision's Freewind Falcon. Freewind Falcon is worth noting because its artist, Una Fricker, also illustrated Duskrider Peregrine. Una Fricker illustrated 34 cards in her career, 30 of those cards appearing before the year 2000. Since then, she had a single card in Unhinged in 2004, Uktabi Kong, which was a reference to her Uktabi orangutan, including the humping monkeys in the back. She has contributed 3 cards for Time Spiral block, but hasn't illustrated a Magic card since this set. Over her whole career, every card she painted has prominently featured very detailed animals or beasts, except one, Wasteland. Errant Doomsayers is a really obscure reference to Homeland's Ison bureaucrats, specifically this version that features similar flavor text referencing a Vault of Horrors. It's almost a direct reprint, except its ability has been changed to tap creatures with 2 toughness or less instead of 2 or less power, and now it's a rebel instead of an advisor. Similar to Una Fricker, Liz Danforth is an artist returning for Time Spiral who hadn't contributed art for cards in a while. Her earliest artwork appears in Legends, and her art appeared fairly regularly until 1997's Vanguard series. She then had 2 cards in Unhinged, then 2 cards in Time Spiral, but she hasn't illustrated a Magic card since. If you thought Azen Bureaucrats was an obscure reference, wait until you see Evangelize. Based on Preacher from the Dark, Evangelize can gain control of your opponent's creatures, but it's their choice which creature they give you. If they don't give you the creature you want, you can always cast Evangelize with Buyback to try again. Buyback first appeared in Tempest in 1997. It was also used in the 2 other sets of Tempest block, Stronghold and Exodus. I find this obviously a strange ability for a white card, but somehow it gets a little stranger as there's 4 other mono white cards which let you steal an opponent's creature. Jabari's Influence from Mirage and Debt of Loyalty from Weatherlight, with the other 2 both being angels, Ice Age's Seraph and her 2005 Cold Snap counterpart, a Darkar Valkyrie, but as far as I found, hasn't shown up on a new white card since Evangelize. Gonna have to wrap things up there, but don't worry, I have just as much to say about the remaining 95% of Time Spiral. If you want more about Magic right now, I have a podcast on this channel called The Magic, the Myth, the Legend about Kaldheim and its relationship with real mythology. I'd love for you to check that out. Kaldheim is a lot of fun to discuss too. Until next time, GG!